We'd just like to thank everybody for coming out tonight on a rainy evening, and thanks ever so much for inviting me over to Glossop. I actually had a brother-in-law that lived in Glossop until recently, so it's got a special place in my heart, and I love coming in over and having a look at the hills and the scenery. It's a beautiful place to live, and you're very lucky to be living in this area, that's for sure. Now, as you've heard, I've actually only been an MP since May 2015, and it's been a bit of a year, that's for sure. I mean, when I started off as an MP, I was probably, people would say I was on the left of the party. I wouldn't like to put myself anywhere, but typically people would say that I was on the left of the party. And I wanted the Labour Party to represent the values that I thought that it should represent, and it did represent historically, and I wanted it to be a socialist party, and I felt that for quite some time, although it had done some fantastic work, in some areas it had lost its way, shall we say, without going into too much detail, and I wanted to try and push it towards a socialist vision and a socialist hope that I thought that we should be providing our communities with as a Labour Party. And I thought, to be fair, that I'd be probably gone in a few months for saying the word socialist too much, and I thought I'd be in a minority. And then when we had the leadership election in 2015, nothing prepared me for what happened. And you probably know I was a Jeremy supporter then, and at the time there was a little group of kind of socialist MPs in the Labour Party. We'd all kind of sat down and thought, right, who's going to be the left's voice in this? We've got to put somebody on the ballot paper, and historically we've always struggled to get people on the left through into the kind of next stage, but we didn't realise what was to come. So Jeremy puts his hand up and he says, I don't mind doing it this time. We've got to open up the debate, and we've got to give the kids a little bit of time to settle in. We don't want to be thrusting them up into the limelight when they've not had a chance to kind of settle down or anything. So we're like, all right, you do that, Jeremy, that's fantastic, we'll all support you. And we really didn't think that we were going to do as well as Jeremy actually did. And it exploded overnight, absolutely exploded. And we knew that the hunger was out there for a leader that represented Jeremy's views, but we didn't realise how quickly it was going to happen. And I was absolutely stunned and excited beyond belief when he won the leadership election last year. And it's like I have to pinch myself every day when I'm in Parliament and think about, you know, the position that we're in, because never in a million years did I think that I'd be in a party where we actually had a leader, a socialist leader that I really believed in to the very kind of like core of my being. So, to cut a long story short, you can imagine that I don't really want to be where we are this summer. I don't think that we should be having a leadership election, because I think that the will of the membership should have been respected. But we are where we are, and I hope that in September, whoever wins, we can draw a line under it and start unifying as a party and representing the communities that we're supposed to be representing. So, I mean, from what we've seen over the last 6 years, the Tories are absolutely devastating our public services. They're absolutely tearing apart our communities, and now we've got Theresa May like some sort of turbo Margaret Thatcher, Jeremy Corbyn called her a few weeks ago. And we know that the next few years are going to be absolutely horrific for our communities, especially in the north. You know, we've got, as I've said, we've got them cutting people's benefits and public services, and they're trying to convince us all that we need to do this in the name of austerity to get the deficit down. However, the record over the last few years has been absolutely shocking. They couldn't run an economy if they were paid billions and billions of pounds. And at the same time, they're in bed with big corporations. They're slashing corporation tax. And they're slashing inheritance tax for the most wealthiest in society. So it's not a case of we're all in it together. They're looking after a certain proportion of this country, and it's not the 99%, that's for sure. And we know in the Northwest the impact that this Tory government has had, and previous Tory governments. And we've heard all the rhetoric from the likes of George Osborne that we're going to have a northern powerhouse and that it's going to invest in our northern communities. And it simply isn't true. It really isn't. All this Tory government wants, and what we've seen on the ground so far, is devolution of cuts. And that's why they're using cities like Manchester and Liverpool as the guinea pigs in this, because they're Labour-run authorities, and unfortunately a lot of the community isn't political and it doesn't really understand the difference between Westminster and local councils. And when they see that they're not getting the bins collected and there aren't local libraries and they can't get the social care that they deserve, they blame the nearest person that they see, and that's usually their Labour-run authorities.